Retrobotics.
Hello and welcome to Retrobotics. Now this is a question that we've got a few times in live streams and other things like that, is how are these games controlled? I've mentioned Home Assistant and what can be achieved with it, so now I'm going to give a quick overview of how this is working. Some people have got their games hooked up to Alexa or whatnot. Notice nothing responded. We don't have an Alexa, and I like it that way. We're running everything through Home Assistant. That means for our smart plugs and other devices that we have in here, we're using locally controlled. The ones I've got in my hand are Zigbee. So we have a Zigbee hub hooked up to the Home Assistant computer. But we also have Kazaa, which are the TP-Link brand wireless switches hooked up that allow us to control everything from the phone. Now I'm recording on my phone, and I'll show this on the side panel. What you see right here is the Home Assistant panel we have for our arcade. Note in the top, the grid there with a power switch corresponding to each game. Then there are some macro buttons down here. Turn on the arcade, turn off the arcade, select a random game, we'll come back to that, arcade stats, service mode, party mode, and some light stuff. So let's go in first to the turn on the arcade. This is something that is a little bit of a more finesse operation, because if you were to turn on all these games at once, it would absolutely blow the circuit breaker because of the inrush current as these games are turning on. To solve that problem, I'm using an automation here, which makes it so that the games turn on only a pair at a time to minimize the inrush current. And now I'll show how that works. Notice right now, Gate of Doom and Tron come on. And then Firefox and Crystal Castle's in the other room. Aliens and Joust. In Gauntlet. X-Men. Robotron. Mortal Kombat. Asteroids Deluxe. Tempest. Space Invaders. And finally Centipede. So now, on the panel, you can see that all these games are on and are making quite a bit of racket in the real world. So what will happen if I want to shut everything off? We'll just go with the turn off arcade button, which will make a very satisfying popping sound as everything goes off, including the lights. Now, for turning off, obviously, you can just turn off everything at once, so you can set a group in Home Assistant of different like-typed equipment, in this case, switches, and that's what I've done. Now, what else can this do? Turning on every game, that seems risky, right, if something's out of order? So that's what service mode is for. In service mode, I can go through and knock out any game that I would tag as out of order. When turning on those games, these games will be skipped in the turn-on order and will not come on at all. And they are marked as out of order using this red wrench icon. And I can pull that tab away. The top panel will still allow games to be turned on. And the reason I've left it this way versus disabling them in a more certain fashion is that the only people who have access to this instance are myself and Sam. And we know better. We know when something's out of order not to turn it on unless we're testing it. So that's why that's there. Another question that's come up is, what about when you want to play something that you haven't played in a while? That's what the select random game option is for. With this, if I hit it, it chooses for us a random number and then picks the game to play. In this case, it picked Asteroids, which is now coming on. And this also checks against the service mode. So if it picks a game that is out of order, it'll pick again until it finds one that is operating well enough to actually be played. So we're done with that. We can turn that off. The last thing that I have in here before we get into the really interesting stuff is the arcade stats. And this allows me to see basically what's been used and when. And I've used this as a popularity metric before. I'm still tuning this particular feature, but it tracks how long each game has been on relative to any other game. So I can just chew that data to find out what's popular when people are here and they have access to this through the guest panel. All right, so the last things on here are party mode. And what party mode does is it is tied to our idle timer system. The idle timer is a way to prevent games from being left on unintentionally. I know that Charlie G from Overtime Arcade has had this problem with, I believe it was his play choice left on and the monitor burned out. I want to avoid that here. So what we've done is when a game is left on without party mode being enabled, it'll send a warning to our phones after an hour and 15 minutes saying, hey, this game is left on. Did you mean to do that? And if we did mean it, we can dismiss that notification and enable party mode. Party mode allows a game to be left on indefinitely. Party mode switches itself off after 8 hours. So if we turn it on at 7 p.m., it's good for the rest of the night, and we can always re-enable it if we choose so. If party mode is not turned on after that notification is dispatched to our phones, it gives us another half an hour grace period, and then we'll shut off the entire arcade at that time just to be safe. And I will give a demo of that, but I have to modify my automation a little bit so that it will actually be seen in the time scale of this video. So bear with us just a moment. So I made those edits to the automation, and we're going to go in and take a quick look at what happens when we turn on a game without party mode enabled. For this, I'm going to choose Robotron. So Robotron's going to come on, and in about 15 seconds, I should get a notification to my phone basically saying, hey, wait a minute, did you really mean to leave that on for so long? Even though it's only been 15 seconds, I just adjusted the timers, that's all. So there it is. You see the notification there. One or more party game has been left on. If this is intentional, please enable party mode, otherwise the machine will shut off in 30 seconds. So we're going to leave that alone for another 15 seconds, and there you go. The machine shuts itself back off. Now if we turn on party mode and turn it on again, we're just going to let Robotron boot up. That notification won't come back because it's assumed that we're intentionally running things and we're babysitting not only games but guests at the same time, or trying to get a high score. But this is just a way to make sure that our games are operating safely for longer and we don't have to worry so much about it. In any case, thanks for watching this quick little video about Home Assistant, and have a wonderful day.